Bill, thank you for that introduction. You didn't mention I have been the winner of a couple of Pulitzer Prizes, but in the 26 years of SOPA, I am also a competitor and a proud winner of some SOPA awards, including during my time at the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And for all of those years, we've been very eager competitors and participants in SOPA. Those 26 years, in fact, have coincided with major expansion of all of our media companies in Asia, and also the blossoming of so many local and regional media companies. And SOPA has been recognizing all that outstanding journalism by local, regional, and international organizations that make serious, well-reported, innovative, and revealing coverage of Asia their top priority. In fact, that regional scope and the inclusion of work in English and in Chinese and in Bahasa Indonesia, the welcoming of so many entries from locally based as well as international publications makes SOPA very unusual in the world of journalism prizes. In many ways, it reflects the global outlook of East, Southeast, and South Asia, and has reflected this region's openness to ideas and competition from around the world. We've been, as I mentioned, a proud competitor for SOPA since its founding, and what impresses me looking over this year's entries is the fine writing, the immersive storytelling, the urgency of breaking news, and also the patience and the resources that it takes to produce outstanding investigative work. I'm proud and inspired by the work of our peers, and I know you are as well. We all know, though, that this is not the full story of our industry and the political environment we're operating in at the moment, particularly in China and here in Hong Kong. We're living through a period of severe challenges to quality journalism, in fact, almost everywhere. In the United States and in Europe, the disruption of the news media industry by tech platforms has diminished the resources it takes for expensive, labor-intensive original journalism. It's also encouraged the personalization of news and information and the polarization of so many of its consumers. Many people are now fed a diet of so-called news in social media feeds that mixes fact and opinion and misinformation, designed more to generate engagement rather than ensure accuracy or fairness or deeper understanding. And around the globe, our journalists and many others are facing rising threats to their safety and their security. Record or near record numbers of them are being killed or jailed. This isn't just the result of horrific conflicts for the journalists who are bravely covering the war between Ukraine and Russia or Israel-Gaza, dangerous as those are. It's also because of the demonizing and all too often the murder of reporters in places we all once hoped would see greater openness and protections for the news media and the people who take such great personal risks to bear witness there. Here in Hong Kong, we've continued to see the chilling effect of the new security laws. They've continued to threaten press freedoms in a place that once prided itself as a haven in a volatile region. The prosecution of Jimmy Lai and the shuttering of the Apple Daily after a quarter century in operation continues to resonate here, but also globally, as a sign of Hong Kong's departure from its tradition of free speech and free press. Jimmy was for years regarded both for his proud independence and his innovative spirit. Today, he's more of a symbol of displaced intolerance. Everyone in this room understands the corrosive effect the national security law continues to have. The Reuters digital news report released just this week makes for very sobering reading. Journalists in Hong Kong have to deal with potential red lines that could lead to charges of secession, subversion, terrorism, and collusion with foreign organizations. The Hong Kong Foreign Correspondents Club found that 3/4 of its members are worried about the possibility of arrest or prosecution for their reporting and editing. And most of those acknowledged needing to engage in self-censorship in their writing to avoid certain topics. For generations of my colleagues at the New York Times, and for me personally, Hong Kong represented something very different. As early as the 1950s, the Times began basing reporters in Hong Kong as a listening post to understand the upheavals in mainland China. Our first correspondent here, Henry Lieberman, was also the founding president of the Foreign Correspondents Club. My predecessor as executive editor, Joe Lelyveld, served also in Hong Kong, and for him and many others who followed, mainland China remained largely inaccessible to Western journalists. That's when Hong Kong developed its reputation as a bridge between East and West, open to both of them, a hub of information, free exchange, and debate. Correspondents here have alerted the world, and perhaps sometimes people in China as well, to the extent of the Great Famine, in part because Hong Kong relatives began shipping food to relatives across the border. Hong Kong journalists were the first to learn of the internecine fighting during the Cultural Revolution, in part because they witnessed bodies floating down the Pearl River from Guangzhou. I first came to Hong Kong as a correspondent in 1989 after the Chinese authorities canceled my visa and told me to leave Beijing, where I was covering the crackdown on the Tiananmen Square demonstrations. Hong Kong, for me, became a kind of glittering refuge. Admittedly, that was partly because I could buy shaving cream again and newspapers, also because I was treated to free beers at the FCC in exchange for my accounts of the goings-on across the border, but also because Hong Kong lived up to its reputation as a free city that welcomes so many people and thrives on the dynamism that comes from its openness and tolerance. On many subsequent visits, including a stint living here around the handover in 1997, Hong Kong evolved, but always had a special role. Whatever was unfolding across the border, the people of this city, especially in its bustling journalism community, cared deeply, gathered information assiduously, and sought to move China toward prosperity and moderation. Hong Kong people also offered the outside world greater understanding and acceptance of China's history and its culture. I took particular pride in the expansion of the Times' operation in Hong Kong during the years I ran our international operation. At the peak, we had a few dozen reporters and editors here, coordinating our digital operations through the Asian Day, reporting on a wide range of news throughout the region, and producing our international print edition. The national security law has changed that picture. We're a global news operation that requires firm legal protections for the journalists and our staff. So we felt we had little choice but to create another base of operations, this time in Seoul. And I know some other international media organizations have also reduced their staff here. Many Chinese digital media companies have not had the option of moving and have been forced to reduce or some even to close down altogether. A great loss for a place that once prided itself on experimentation and openness. Yet despite these setbacks, I still have confidence that good journalism will prove its value and will ultimately prevail. Open-minded, well-rounded, and fact-based reporting treats readers with respect and arms them with the information and perspective they need to make sense of their world at a confusing time. Even when journalism challenges us, especially when it challenges us, it makes our societies stronger. It helps people and governments to make better choices, to confront reality, and to address problems. Hong Kong also remains an important base for us. We still have a robust reporting team here that covers Hong Kong itself, and as in decades past, reports on a wide range of developments, social, economic, diplomatic, and political across the border. Joining this year's SOPA Awards and visiting here myself for the first time in several years also gave me the chance to re-engage with some of the work being produced by many organizations here and around the region. Even in a difficult environment, I see lots of examples of outstanding journalism that's having real impact. I see that from organizations like Rappler, focusing on abuses of domestic workers, and China Global South on the displacement of people by China's clean energy projects. There are some robust entries from Myanmar, Frontier Myanmar and Myanmar Now, which is really encouraging. Ming Pao has done important reporting on the revival of commemorations of June 4th, even after the passage of Article 23. Hong Kong Free Press offers robust beat reporting on local politics. And I noticed the SCMP's scoop on how Xi Jinping blamed frustrated students for their protests against China's zero COVID lockdowns. And on the mainland, Caixin still produces vital explanatory work about Chinese policymaking and finance that takes readers behind the scenes of an increasingly impenetrable bureaucracy. That kind of journalism takes more courage today, but it makes a difference. Hong Kong, China, this region, and the world are depending on your resolve and resilience now more than ever. Thank you, and I'm happy to be here with you.